From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. Our top stories in the United States, where millions are getting ready to vote on Super Tuesday in a Democratic presidential race that has slowly turned into a Bernie Sanders versus the rest contest. Voting will occur in 14 states and the American Samoa territory. Sanders is seeking to cement his position as the front-runner and fend off a challenge from former Vice President Joe Biden, who has gained momentum following his recent victory in South Carolina. Despite endorsements from candidates who have dropped out, Biden still trails Sanders in the delegate count and national polls. Former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, who has so far spent more than $500 million in his campaign, will appear on the ballot for the first time.
I definitely, when I first saw that Buttigieg dropped out, my thought is maybe that he's polling with Biden for maybe doing a VP and they're trying to pull votes. So it's interesting to see. I feel like going forward, Bernie's always kind of had a tough fight ahead of him, and if he gets that nomination, that'll be huge. And I feel like we're just gonna have to take it step by step. It's definitely an uphill battle.
Meanwhile, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar is the second Democrat to withdraw her presidential bid in less than 24 hours. Klobuchar made the announcement on Monday and endorsed rival Joe Biden in an effort to unify voters against Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders.
And now we know that all...
And on Sunday night, Pete Buttigieg announced he was pulling out of the race after he ranked fourth, with just 8% of the votes in South Carolina. Buttigieg was the first openly gay presidential candidate from a major party in the United States. Our correspondent Jorge Gestoso has the latest details.
Thank you. Super Tuesday today, 14 states are holding primaries among the Democratic Party and will be a key day for the future of the possible nominee. The strategy looks like everybody against Bernie Sanders. We're talking about the moderate wing of the Democratic Party helping Joe Biden with the support of former candidates like Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg that suspended their campaign and given their support to Joe Biden. Something also that is very interesting to see is what is going to be the performance of the newcomer, if you want, which is Michael Bloomberg. He has spent $500 million in advertising, and it's the first time that he's participating and this time in this Super Tuesday. He said that he's ready to go on and he expects to become the alternative to Bernie Sanders. So the big dispute within the Democratic Party is who could be the other side, the option to Bernie Sanders, or Joe Biden, former vice president, or Mike Bloomberg. Bernie Sanders, the one who has not only winning in the polls in California and Texas, that are the two states with more delegates, but also the only one that has a real organization among the 14 states. And economically, he's doing extremely well with very small donations. The average is $18 against the other candidate, the quote-unquote moderate candidates that receive huge donations of big donors. So the thing very important to see is in the next 24 hours, Bernie Sanders expected to be the winner, but who is going to be the second one and who is going to become in the longer run the only alternative, the only what they call moderate alternative to Bernie Sanders, or Joe Biden or Mike Bloomberg. We'll get back to you now.
In Guyana, polls closed at 6 p.m. local time on Monday in the country's crucial general election, with reports of a good voter turnout across the country. 65 parliamentary seats are up for grabs as the ruling APNU-AFC coalition, led by President David Granger, is seeking to see off a challenge from the opposition PPPC. The election was called just over a year after the government lost a vote of confidence. The central issue for many voters is how any new government will manage Guyana's promised oil boom. Preliminary results are expected this Tuesday.
Until now, we have not heard about anything untoward. Of course, there were minor incidents, but nothing incidental. However, we are about to later to have our tabulation. At this time, I would urge members of the media not to sensationalize any of their stories, because at this time we're in a charged atmosphere, and so we have to be careful how we go about spreading stories. We must always verify our stories before we publish them.
And there were also claims and counterclaims of irregularities. An hour before the polls closed, the PPPC General Secretary Barak Jagdeo posted a video refuting allegations that his party distributed fake identification cards to mobilize voters.
Why would we want to distribute ID cards openly to people on election day in front of the entire media and everyone else? And even ID cards do not matter, because even if you have a fake ID, you cannot vote. Your picture is on the folio and the presiding officers are controlled by GCOM. But this is just a pretext. Now, they are desperate, so Basil Williams and Amnali went up to Monrepo. They took some supporters there, and they made this claim that now I just saw it, that Anil Nandalal was somehow involved in distributing the ID. And they carefully recorded it and put it on their page just to mobilize and rile up their supporters. And so people would feel that aggrieved and may want to either come out and vote or create trouble around the polling places. So this is a desperate attempt by APNU. The Commissioner of Police has disappeared. He promised to maintain the integrity of the polling places, to keep everything peaceful, to allow people to be able to vote. Right now, they're blocking people at Potentia from voting, and he has abdicated his responsibility and his promise to the people of the country.
And the APNU-AFC has since responded, calling the allegations false and mischievous.
Simply because of the color of their eye. The APNU plus AFC has noted a false and mischievous statement released by the leader of the opposition, Mr. Barak Jagdeo, which follows a pattern of fake news that we have become accustomed to over the last 3 months from the People's Progressive Party. Early today, 2nd of March, the coalition warned its supporters and the people of Guyana that the People's Progressive Party will engage in that type of fake news and fear-mongering to set the stage for their excuses for certain political defeat. I have made no statement calling for cancellation of the poll. I am very confident in the turnout of the people of Guyana at the polls today, and we look forward to a result which should eventuate in the returning of the coalition to office.
And the future of Guyana's oil wealth is central in these elections. Earlier, our correspondent Alejandro Kirk spoke to Lincoln Lewis, the General Secretary of Guyana's Trade Union Congress, and asked him how workers see this issue.
This election is about many things for the trade union. One, it is about the sovereignty of this country. The sovereignty that is being raped by foreign investors over a number of years. It's a situation where the laws of this land, when it comes to the question of upholding and respecting the rights of citizens and particularly workers, is being raped day by day. They have done it with impunity over a number of years. And as such, we see it as a question of questioning the independence and the sovereignty of this country. And it comes a time where those elected officials must stand up for the people. The 2% royalty, I believe, is the first step. The trade union see it as the first step by a government. They have made errors. They cannot continue to make missteps in the future. What we're talking about is a situation where our Constitution, Article 13, speaks of inclusionary democracy. It says that every man, every citizen must have a right or a say in any decision making that impact his well-being, be it economic, political, or social. We want to be a part of it, and we are seeing this year as the beginning of making that article in the Constitution real. Laws must be put in place subsequent to these elections.
So now let's go live to Alejandro Kirk, our correspondent in Georgetown. Let's see if he can hear us now. Hello, Alejandro. Now the elections are over. It's the morning after. What's the situation in Guyana?
Carla, good morning. The situation is calm, but uncertainty probably is the word to describe what's happening. The Electoral Commission promised last night to be delivering results all night through, to have a press briefing this morning at 8 o'clock, and that didn't happen. The page www.guyanaelections.com is not working. There are no figures anywhere to be found. Only some informal counts by local media randomly gathered from polling stations where the APNU, the ruling coalition, seems to have a slight majority, but that by their own description, that doesn't reflect any trend. On the other hand, unofficial accounting by some members of the People's Progressive Party, the opposition force, are giving this party an overwhelming majority. So there is silence from GCOM, the Electoral Commission. They promised now another briefing around noon to give substantial results. That's what they said, and probably to mark a trend, although this is not going to be official either, because final results are expected by next week. But in any case, this uncertainty can be revealing too about what's happening. The violence that erupted yesterday at Mont Repos, a neighborhood about half an hour from downtown Georgetown, was an incident involving just 2 people. But it created a situation that even the riot police was called and drew the attention of everybody here. The accused in this case is the PPP. So all the accusations of rigging elections are not going against the government, but to the Progressive Party. On the other hand, Progressive Party sympathizers have told us that the government has been preparing this for these 15 months since the vote of confidence was lost, and to rig the elections by preventing people from voting in rural areas, in border areas like that of Suriname and the Essequibo. But in any case, all this is speculation as of now. We have to wait until noon to have a more official version of what happened and see how it develops from there. Carla.
Yes, Alejandro. One last question. What's the situation with the observers in Guyana? We also heard a lot of claims by both ruling party and opposition party of voting irregularities. What have the observers, international observers, said about this issue?
Well, observers have promised to hold briefings today too, but nobody has heard of them either. So it must have been a hectic night for many people here, you know, in the dark. But so far, there are no announcement of any press briefings by the observers. They are supposed to be displayed all over the country and come back with some sort of report. But the Commonwealth Mission told us yesterday that they would give just an initial statement that they would not venture into any announcements that may influence this voting or increase the tension that there is. But, you know, this is like journalists used to say, a tense calm that it's reigning over the city right now. So let's wait for news from these people. The only mission that has promised actually to give some results today is the Commonwealth, while the others have kept silent, promising some press briefings between today and tomorrow, but nothing concrete.
Thank you very much, Alejandro, and of course we'll keep waiting and we'll keep you, of course, on the loop so you can keep us updated. That was Alejandro Kirk from Georgetown. We'll take a short break, but coming up, another anti-feminist comment by the Chilean president that causes outrage. Don't go away.
We share your feelings, exalt your accomplishments, and show your reality. Our approach is global and keeps us in tune with the peoples. Caribbean countries also get our signal. With enthusiasm, we will continue to broadcast for them. Because we are Telesur, the news broadcaster from South America and the Caribbean.
Welcome back. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro has met with members of various opposition sectors as part of the national dialogue to discuss plans to hold legislative elections later this year. This is the second time President Maduro is holding direct talks with opposition sectors, as the government is mostly represented by Communications Minister Jorge Rodríguez. The opposition representatives include Timoteo Zambrano of the Let's Change the Citizen Movement Party, Javier Bertucci of the Hope for Change Party, and Luis Romero of the Progressive Advance Party, among others. Women in Chile are expressing outrage over President Sebastián Piñera's statements during the signing of the Gabriela Law, which is meant to strengthen the existing legislation against femicide in the country. During his speech, Piñera said there are cases in which the responsibility is on the victim. Social media users took to Twitter to express their anger. Lawmaker Maite Orsini said when Sebastián Piñera blames the victims for being abused, it only corroborates his machismo, the policy of impunity, and his rejection of women. Feminist movements are calling for a general strike on March 7 and 8 for Women's Day.
Sometimes it's not only the men's willingness to abuse, but also the women's attitude to being abused. We need to correct the person who abuses, but also tell the women who are abused that they shouldn't allow this.
Venezuela held the 4th Music Festival of the Peoples in Caracas, and since then various collaborations between Venezuelan and Senegalese musicians have developed to promote the African, Latin American and Caribbean cultures and to highlight their shared roots.
Paca Bardien is a percussionist, singer, and a spiritual guide. He's also the president of the NGO Africa Sounds.
Africa Sounds is already 7 years old. It's an NGO that seeks to promote culture and support these kids. It's been almost 6 years since we left Senegal, taking our culture across Latin America. We have already been in Uruguay, Paraguay, Cuba, Argentina, Brazil, and now Venezuela. We are mixing our music dominated by percussion with other music genres that our grandparents had left behind. The Africa Sounds project has started big, and although we come from a small town, our culture is very vast. And through our music and culture, our town have become well known. Senegal has become more well known than ever.
Africa has long been a victim of a brutal campaign that seeks to discredit countries and their citizens across the continent.
In Africa we have our culture, and we don't really need anybody. On the contrary, many have come to Africa to steal from us, and now they want nothing to do with us. That's the problem, and the same is happening with Venezuela. They want to steal from Venezuela, steal from Africa. They tell you, don't go to Africa because there are a lot of diseases and hunger. And when you arrive to Africa, you see that not all of us are starving. Many of us are doing well, like Venezuela.
This international program is a reflection of our ancestry and the importance of strengthening our roots and spirits.
We came from Senegal to get to know Venezuela and show the world the other side of Venezuela.
In Venezuela, Africa Sounds offers a wide variety of cultural programs ranging from concerts, music workshops to dance classes. They are also recording a new album titled Cori, Songs from the Soul, in collaboration between Senegal Visions and the Venezuelan folk band Madera. The songs will aim to promote a better world without borders.
Venezuela is a multicultural, multi-ethnic nation. We have historic friendships with many countries. We are telling our common story through a cultural and musical exchange program, which resulted in the creation of the Festival of the African Peoples. We're now planning the 4th edition that will take place here in October. This union will last forever. It won't depend on the current affairs. It's not temporary. The union with Africa through Senegal is a permanent union for Venezuela. It's about the common blood that goes through our veins. It's a passion that reminds us of our common ancestry, but also makes us look into the future with hope to see what we will build together like brothers and sisters. We will always defend the values that unite us.
The two groups also seek to include other artists, singers, musicians, and dancers in the project that will be able to share through culture the scars of the former slaves that now seek for a better and fair world.
Que ahora en condición de libertad luchan por un mundo de igualdad, justicia y hermandad entre todos los pueblos.
Un solo pueblo, un solo continente.
After this last break, floods affect hundreds in Brazil and are expected to continue, so stay with us.
Innovation, science, the technological breakthrough, and its influence in society.
Viajeros del saber, el futuro está aquí.
Atomum. Monday, only on Telesur.
Thank you for joining us again. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has claimed victory in Israel's election, in the general election, with exit polls putting him in a strong position to form the next government. The election, Israel's third in less than a year, was called after inconclusive votes in April and September left Israel in a political deadlock. Surveys give Netanyahu right-wing Likud party and its right-wing allies, including ultra-Orthodox parties, 60 seats, one short of a majority. Now to Brazil, where at least 4 people have died and hundreds have been affected after heavy rains in Rio de Janeiro. In the western Realengo neighborhood, at least 6 cars were dragged away in floodings as water levels reached more than a meter. The north and west region of the city were the most affected by the storm. City and state authorities are in a state of alert as more rains are expected, not just in Rio, but also in the southeast of the country in the coming days. And we continue with our coverage of the coronavirus. Now, Senegal has confirmed its first coronavirus case, making it the second country in sub-Saharan Africa to be affected by the COVID-19 outbreak. The first case in the region was recorded in Nigeria last week.
The results of the tests carried out by the Pasteur Institute in Dakar came back positive. So far, the patient's condition has not raised any major concern.
And CARICOM nations have held an emergency meeting after the region registered its first case of the COVID-19. CARICOM Chairman and Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, summarized the outcome.
It is clear that it is entirely within our capacity to manage and to contain. And once we can detect, contain and manage, then in the same way that we as small island states, whether it's SARS, H1N1, the influenza, before Ebola, chikungunya, Zika, we can manage this as well. But it is going to require cooperation, partnership, discipline, and communication in order for us to detect, manage, and contain, and manage the process.
And we end with good news. The World Health Organization has announced a significant reduction in Ebola cases in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The WHO said cases have gone down from more than 120 per week in mid-April 2019 to between 0 and 3 cases per week in the month. The progress has been attributed to a new response strategy where people consider high-risk contacts, those who are most likely to become infected and potentially pass on the illness, have the option of staying in a specially adapted guest house for 21 days, which is the incubation period for Ebola. And with that, we end our news brief, but you can find all of our stories by checking our website, telesurenglish.net. And you can also join us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.